Good evening, everyone. Welcome and Happy New Year to everybody. Glad to see you all here. And I want to welcome everybody on the other platforms that are out there also. And we'll talk about that in a few moments. But I want to say a big welcome to everybody and to all of our admin staff and everybody else that has helped us get here into 2023 and go live with our continuing ed training here at Normie. So welcome to the admin people. And let me make a few announcements really quick and let you know about this new platform that we're using. We are currently broadcasting on, and I'm saying hello to all the people on those other platforms, on the Twitch network. For those of you familiar with Twitch, it's out there, and it's a extremely popular network for a lot of gaming and social interests. Normie.tv is another location to watch. The it is indoorairquality.tv is available. We are also streaming on our YouTube channel. We are streaming live to DLive. We are also streaming live, hopefully, to the Facebook Live page for normie.org, so you can find us on Facebook. And finally, LinkedIn, the Normie channel on LinkedIn. So if you're on one of those channels, welcome. Glad to see you here in the room. In the near future, we will have the capability of doing combined chat, where we can bring chat in from all of those platforms at the same time into one chat group. But at the moment, we're not able to do that. For those of you that are active Normie members, to get credit for your CE training, you do have to be here in our Zoom room. That is where we're broadcasting from tonight. You do know how to get here. If you're not an active member, you can always go to join.normie.org to become an active member and get into the interactive Zoom meeting. Or you can just watch it on the other platforms that I mentioned. In any case, I don't want to hold up on the presentation. I'm going to jump right into that. We did an interview with Gavin McGregor Skinner, who may be here tonight. I know he was going to try to come in the room and answer some questions. We didn't do it live tonight because he had another engagement and didn't know if he was going to make it on time. So we wanted to make sure you had the interview. And if he's here, we'll bring him in at the end for some questions also. For the rest of the Normie members, at the end of our training here tonight, we will shut down the live feed to the other broadcasting, and we will continue with some Q&A and more member information here in this room. So Roger or Tim, unless you see anything else that we need to address, I'm going to start up with Gavin, who's always enjoyable to talk to. So please stand by. We're all going to shut down our video and mics and go right into our presentation. Hi, everyone. I want to welcome our guest speaker tonight, Gavin McGregor Skinner, to our show. And Gavin's been on before, and I really enjoy when he's here as a speaker. And when we ask him questions, we get a lot of information back. Gavin is a talker. I think we
need video.
that way. And it's a tremendous amount of info that he comes across with. So we've had a lot of very positive responses from our membership in the past when he's been on. So I want to bring Gavin in, have you say a quick hello. And Gavin, you are the Senior Director of G. Please stand by, everybody. Just give me 1 second and we will see what's going on here.
That's what pilots are for.
Anyways, give me 1 second. We'll try it one more time. Did you have audio at least?
Audio was great, Lance.
Audio was great. I'm not sure why video wasn't coming up.
We were just looking at your desktop.
All right. Well, I'm going to try it one more time. Let's see what happens.
Good.
Hi, everyone. I want to welcome our guest speaker tonight, Gavin McGregor Skinner, to our show. And Gavin's been on before, and I really enjoy when he's here as a speaker. And when we ask him questions, we get a lot of information back. Gavin is a talker. I think we can go that way. And it's a tremendous amount of info that he comes across with. So we've had a lot of very positive responses from our membership in the past when he's been on. So I want to bring Gavin in, have you say a quick hello. And Gavin, you are the Senior Director of GBAC, which is the division of ISSA. Can you at least tell us exactly what that is so we know going forward what we're doing here?
Yeah. Sure can, Lance. Hi, everyone. So the GBAC, the Global Biorisk Advisory Council, is a division of ISSA. We have an accreditation program, which is based on 20 elements. It's very comprehensive, very holistic in its approach in not just setting up a yes or no or a pass or fail type program. The program that we have out, which is called our GBAC Star program, for both facilities and also, anyone who works in the cleaning industry, is about professional improvement. So continuous professional improvement. So once we get a baseline, we work with facilities, we work with companies, we work with individuals on developing then a plan on how to improve over time that's realistic and doable.
My understanding is that's dealing with larger projects. I mean, I'm sure you do small ones too, but we're talking airports, hospitals, colleges, things like that.
Oh, we are, Lance. And what's fascinating for me, sort of as an infectious disease expert, I worked for the US government as an epidemiologist, which is like a disease detective, being able to do a very deep dive, understand how is an airport, a convention center, how is a hotel, for example, even a school, cleaned in a way that creates an environment that protects human health has been fascinating. And to really, what our GBAC Star program with the 20 elements does is that deep dive in understanding what are your protocols, procedures, what equipment are you using, how can we help you with to do it better, save money. I know time is our biggest risk factor when it comes to cleaning anything that's in the built environment. So being able to do a really thorough deep dive analysis and work with these organizations like these airports, convention centers, and hotels has been absolutely fascinating. I've learned so much.
I've talked with you before about this, and I think in one of our previous interviews, you had alluded to this also, that these larger facilities actually are almost like a living entity unto themselves. They have their own personalities, they have their own specific problems, where an airport may have a problem because of the type of flights they have compared to a hospital that is expanded over 8, 10, 12 city blocks. I mean, can you touch a little bit about some of the specific issues on a few of these?
Yes, Lance, the size of an airport, a convention center, even the size of the hotels that we work with, the size of the schools. When you map it out by square footage, it's enormous. But when you map it out by users of that built environment, so that's both the workers, the employees, as well as the people that come in and out of those buildings on a daily basis, we're looking at some really significant, big numbers, which leads to risk. And for me to sit down and work with an airport, a convention center, a hotel, or a school, and go, right, how many people come into your indoor space every day? And I get a number. How many people work in your indoor space every day? Okay, how many of those areas within that environment, that built environment, are maybe reservoirs or risk or hazards for infectious diseases, for germs to thrive and survive? And we map that out on a floor plan. And by looking at that, we're looking at some really big issues here when it comes to, okay, so we know everyone wants to come into an airport, a hotel, convention center, and go, oh, look, it smells clean, it looks clean, it's clean for appearance. But what we really want to do is change that paradigm, help these organizations to understand that they can clean for health, and they can then market what they're doing by what they do by their processes and their operations, that they're actually protecting human health. And that's protecting human health of any user, not just the employees, but also the users. Anyone that comes into that environment should feel safe and confident.
We make a distinction when we talk with our members, when we teach classes, that we don't fix people, we fix buildings. But I think the side effect of fixing the buildings is what helps fix people.
It does, Lance, and I think what we've seen, and I like the conversations that Normie's been having with many of their stakeholders, as well as with ISSA and with the GBAC team, is how do we create a workforce development program that will focus on cleaning for health as a sustainable part of the industry that we do every day. It's what we're responsible for. It's going to be what we're going to be measured against. Is cleaning for health, and ensuring that every cleaning professional, the challenge we have in the cleaning industry is that there are many people within the industry that have many different terms of what they do or how they do it. But let's create a big umbrella that if you work in the cleaning industry, you're an essential cleaning professional. And how do we work towards a workforce development program that provides the necessary, I suppose, knowledge, skills, and abilities so that everyone understands what the hazards are, they can identify risk, but then they understand what needs to be cleaned and disinfected. And then most importantly, Lance, how often they need to do that. And that's still the question that we get at ISSA, especially through the GBAC team, from so many service providers as well as facilities. How often should I be doing it? And that's something we really want to correct as we move into 2023. Get those training programs out there, get that education material out there that focuses on how often, and more importantly, again, it goes back to, what you're doing, is it best for the environment, and is it the best that you're focusing on, sort of science, evidence-based procedures for cleaning for health, and can you tell that cleaning story? And that's so important. We want everyone by the end of 2023 be able to tell their cleaning story and justify what they do and how they do it. And that's going to lead to more business opportunities.
You know, I've heard you use the term built environments, and we've talked a little bit about that, and I'd like you to explain what you mean by that. But what's the next big thing coming up with some of these big programs and stuff you have under built environments?
Oh, I think it goes back. This is a great discussion. When we'll use certain terms, cleaning for health is one big term that we're all working on to ensure that it's appropriately defined. But within the built environment, Lance, this is anything that is not natural. It's any space that's actually been built by humans, by people, and we should be focusing on cleaning for health within trains, planes, cars. Any indoor space, anything that we occupy, because we know that so many studies have shown us that we spend about 90% of our day in the built environment. That's indoors, which is really interesting, Lance, because if you lived to 80 years old and you spent 90% of your time in the built environment or indoors, it really means you've spent 72 years of your 80 years of life inside. And we want to ensure that there's so much emphasis on health and safety. We want to ensure that everyone understands that there are places where you find germs in buildings, in other areas, and we call those reservoirs. But how do you identify those reservoirs? One thing that we heard from the COVID-19 pandemic was, frequently clean and disinfect those high-touch surfaces. But then when you went and asked people, what are those high touch surfaces where you work? We got many different answers. What we weren't consistent. So let's transition. Let's evolve. Let's move on and be better by focusing on those reservoirs within the built environment. And again, we know that's water and wet surfaces, dry surfaces, dirt and dust, any equipment that we use or touch, and especially air. And these are all the areas where germs can survive and lead to infection. And let's focus on those reservoirs and move that forward as being our main focus to come up with solutions that work, that are affordable as we clean for health.
As far as you said, 72 years, inside, living to 90 or 80. There was
80 years old, Lance.
80 years old, man, just threw me with that. And then you think about the average person takes 20,000 breaths a day, times 365 days a year, times 72 years. That's a lot of indoor breathing. And indoor air quality, as the big umbrella, shows the importance there of how much exposure people really have in those environments. And cleaning with healthier products, cleaning the right way. I mean, how does a cleaning professional explain to their customer about what needs to be cleaned, where the things hide that need to be cleaned, and how to do them safely?
Oh, I think what you've just set up here for us, Lance, what you've just stated, the fact that we're talking about some significant time, 72 years out of 80 years that, we spend indoors. That's 90% of the day we're spending indoors. It's really important for any essential cleaning professional to understand that what are those other risks, other hazards out there. And again, let's look at some of these numbers. And I think it's important that we understand these numbers and we're able to convey those numbers within the workers that we work with, but also the stakeholders, the people, our customers. So let's think about this. A cough produces about approximately 3,000 droplets, and a sneeze releases about 40,000 droplets. But what does that mean? Well, we know that each droplet, that's one droplet, can contain as many as 200 million virus particles. So do the math there. 3,000 times 200 million, 40,000 times 200 million. You're talking about a lot of virus particles through one cough or one sneeze. Now, what we also know, Lance, is that those particles from a cough can travel up to 6 feet. Particles, these droplets from a sneeze can travel up to 26 feet. We know that breathing, and we saw this with COVID, the outbreak that happened down at Utah with the choir, the singing of the people, expelling droplets out of their mouth. We know that just breathing can expel droplets up to 3 feet. So people within the cleaning industry, we need to be able to define these risks, these hazards. But also we know a toilet flush. So if we flush a toilet, Lance, without closing the lid, the thousands of droplets that come out of the toilet can travel up to 8 feet away. Now, we can translate that to what does it mean for human health? How do we translate that to protecting human health? Well, a person can be infected with a viral disease. It might be COVID-19, it might be flu, it might be a rhinovirus, an adenovirus, it might be other viruses, but with as little as 1,000 virus particles. So with as little as 1,000 infectious virus particles can infect a person and make them sick. And so just look at what we do. So we've really got to be really together as a team here by understanding that cleaning services, cleaning the air is one of our key defenses in the battle against infectious diseases, but also that includes, we've got to add on allergies, and we've also got to talk about exposure to harmful contaminants. So it's really important that that all of us understand the risk in these built environments, the risk where we work, the risk when we go outside our house, and be able to explain that in those sort of numbers so people go, that justifies why I'm paying you for what you do, but more importantly, why it takes you so long to clean for health, that in a way that's, again, science-based and evidence-based, and it's effective.
So what would you say is the things that a cleaning professional would need to know to protect themselves and the public or their employees about germs, basically? We'll call it germs, viruses, bacteria, mold, whatever, microbial contaminants in a environment.
I think first of all, we need to understand there's reservoirs. And these reservoirs are places on or in our bodies ourselves, or they're reservoirs where these are places in the built environment where germs can live and thrive. And for germs to spread, they have to spread between and among these reservoirs. So if we looked at the human body, there's 4 reservoirs. There's the skin, there's the gastrointestinal system or gut, there's the respiratory system, and then there's blood and fluids from our body. And I want everyone to understand that when we talk about blood and fluids, think about anything that's wet from a person's body can actually have germs in it. And we focus so much, Lance, on blood. I want people to understand that for blood from a healthy person, blood should not have germs in it. It shouldn't be infectious. It should be sterile. Blood has germs in it when you get blood from a person who has a disease or has some sort of infection. And so we look at blood as being different, but most of the time when blood comes from a person's body, it doesn't carry infectious diseases. So we've got to understand it's blood and fluid, so anything that's wet. Now, within the built environment, we're talking about these reservoirs. And we know that these reservoirs are environments where germs can, again, thrive and survive. Water and wet surfaces anywhere, dry surfaces, dirt and dust, equipment. And then again, we need to do more focus on the air, which is what, again, a lot of the NORMI programs are addressing right now. So it's important we understand those reservoirs. Then we need to know the pathways. And there are really 4 main pathways that germs can spread. Touch. We know they can spread when we breathe them in. We know that germs can spread when we are exposed to splashes and sprays, but also through cuts and abrasions. So, we have breaks in the skin here, Lance, that can bypass or break down the body's natural defense systems. And it's important that all cleaning professionals understand that there are reservoirs and then there are pathways. And so they should be, everyone should be striving now to be trained on what those reservoirs are, what those pathways are, and then they should be able to explain they are trained. And so I want cleaning professionals to be able to explain, I'm a trained professional. I know there are reservoirs and pathways. I know I have tools and processes to address how to clean and disinfect those surfaces that I've judged to be high risk. And I understand that what I'm doing, I can also use tools to enable the scientific measurement of cleanliness. And one of the first steps we're doing right now, Lance, again, is bringing a team of master trainers, which you're involved in as well, together to try to develop under a sort of an umbrella of workforce development. What are those key critical core competencies, the skills, the attitudes, the abilities, the knowledge? What is it every person in the cleaning industry needs to understand to ensure that what we do is doing the best way that we do it to protect human health?
Yeah, I want to talk to you about the workforce development in a minute. I just want to back up for a second to the previous discussion that we were just having. You mentioned there's 4 reservoirs or 4 types of reservoirs, basically. But from my experience in the past, working for the government and doing a lot of other programs with emergency services, we're always taught about blood-borne pathogens. But that's where it stops, unless you get training in hazmat or something like that. As an expert in the industry, what would you like to see next, training wise, and for these people that are only taught about bloodborne pathogens?
Yeah, it's really important. The bloodborne pathogens served its purpose. When that training was required, we had HIV, we had hepatitis, and other diseases. We're still concerned about those pathogens today, those diseases today. But more importantly, I want people to focus on that anything that's wet from a person's body can actually have germs or infectious disease agents in them. And let's move away from, everyone needs to understand, I've said before, Lance, blood is really sterile. Blood from a person that doesn't have a disease, doesn't have an infection, is not a threat in itself, unless it comes from someone who is infected. But the problem is we don't know that. We don't have that information when we go to clean up a spill, for example, on a floor or on a door handle or on another object in a room that's covered in blood. We don't know where it came from. We don't know what the underlying conditions were of the person where that blood actually originated from. So it's really important. We still have to carry out all those precautions for blood because it's just an unknown. But more importantly, we need to expand our knowledge base, understand that we need to expand our training to understand that blood and fluids, that's anything that's wet from a person's body, is a real risk for spreading infectious disease agents or pathogens, and focus on that, and move away from, it's a sneeze, it's a cough, it's urine, it's diarrhea, it's vomit. No, these are all, for me, as an infectious disease expert, are high risk. And we really should be training everyone in the cleaning industry to focus on those high risk fluids. And there's probably at least 11 of them that come from the body. And that's, and again, move away from that conversation. I agree with you, Lance. Too much of what we're doing now is around that conversation of just blood, but let's go back to anything that's wet that comes out of the body.
You mentioned in some prior discussions that we had about an incident where somebody had vomited on carpeting, and then as it dried, it was vacuumed up, which created a huge airborne contamination issue, and people were getting really sick from that. Again, now we're not dealing with bloodborne pathogens. Now we're dealing with aerosolized, things from something that dried, trying to clean that up. And if you don't do it properly, I think that's where the lack of education is really becoming a big problem in this industry.
And it's more likely for any essential cleaning professional to be exposed to vomit, diarrhea, sweat, sneezes, coughs, other wet substances from the body than blood. We don't deal with blood every day. What we deal with every day is all these other wet substances that come from bodies and land on surfaces. And the potential there is something that I think in a way we've minimalized the risk. We need to go back and do our proper hazard identification, then a risk assessment based on, here's a very overcrowded room. is there anything that's wet that came out of a person's body? And if it did, where did it land? And what are the necessary, again, cleaning products, disinfectants, or even the equipment I need to use, including personal protective equipment, to ensure that what I do in the workplace is done safely. And in that mindset is there. It's there in a number of organizations I work with on a day-to-day basis. It's not, I wouldn't say it's everywhere, but I'd like to see by the end of 2023, at least, Lance, that way of identifying hazards, doing a risk assessment, and then understanding that they are the risks that we have to focus on. Even though when these surfaces appear clean, they still might have germs that are invisible, we can't detect, that we have to then clean for health in a way that's safe for the cleaning professional, but also safe and healthy for the environment as well. So we don't damage, we just don't want to damage stuff as well. That's the other area that we need to focus on.
I recently was in the hospital, part of the volunteer work and stuff I still do. I get involved with that. But with all the education and information coming out now, it's like at least the younger doctors, I'm seeing this in more, are looking at the industry with a new set of eyes. They're learning, they're recognizing different problems. I actually watched a doctor in the emergency room go from patient to patient, but stop after each patient and spray a sanitizing agent on their stethoscope, wipe it down, and then go to the next patient. You never saw that years ago. They would just stethoscope patient to patient to patient.
We're seeing that across so many different verticals throughout the industry as well, Lance. I think we're seeing now whether people have been formally trained, in some cases yes, in some cases no, but we're seeing that workers now are giving adequate time. They're being equipped with the best tools and products and processes to deliver a clean, healthy, and safe, again, built environment. They're doing things that are evidence-based. They're using objective measurements of air, water, and surfaces to ensure that what they're doing actually works. And then they're being able to use, through measurement, those metrics to show what they did actually works. And I think this is the area that we really want to piggyback on. We really want to leverage and take this to scale to ensure that, we saw a few things change over the last couple of years with the COVID-19 pandemic. How do we institutionalize that and become part of our culture? How do we, what's the education and training that's required that we can use different case studies, different examples to go to scale? And I think that's just really important, Lance. Again, we've seen mistakes and we've learned from mistakes, but how would we be more sort of preventive in the way that we can actually justify what we did is based on science and evidence. It's a best practice. And we're ensuring that what we do, we're doing it frequently enough to ensure that everything is clean and is safe in a way that we as trained professionals should be recognized for. So I think it's important that all of us work together across our different verticals and different stakeholders that we've got to engage them in a way that, let's be intentional. Let's be intentional about measuring the important factors for cleanliness, and let's ensure that that measurement is a key to process improvement.
All right. A little while ago, you had mentioned about workforce development, and I want to get back to that because you also talked about scale. And I know you got some pretty big visions out there, about how many people you actually want to train. I'll let you throw the number out. I'm not going to do it. But part of that also deals with grant funding that you've been working with. I don't know if you feel that you can talk about that right now.
Yes, we can. Yeah. No, this is really important. This is really important, Lance. Just recently we came down to the NORMI facilities in Florida, and we conducted a 2-day workshop on curriculum development with nearly 20 master trainers. And this is a really critical first step. And in my career, that I've worked with both, government and non-government, I've been involved in some really big programs where we've aimed for some, training and education of really some significant numbers. And so, let's reflect, how many people do we think just in the US is involved in the cleaning industry? And I think from discussions we have with the US Department of Labor, both at the federal and state levels, we don't know exactly, but we think there's about probably 5 million workers in the cleaning industry that work on the front lines. And so one of the things that I'd like to throw out there, Lance, is if there's 5 million essential cleaning professionals in the US, could we train 1 million in a year? That's 20%. Could we train 20% of the workforce? Train 1 million people every year in a way that helps them maintain a balanced ecosystem within the built environment, again, by using the right products in the right place at the right time. And I think, ISSA in a consortium with Normie, with Shaw Industries, with CPI. So we've got, Doug Hoffman, we've got you, Lance, we've got Dave Murrah over at CPI. We've got Jim Manus with Shaw Industries and again, a number of other master trainers all coming together to focus on what is the appropriate real need training facilitation that's required to go to 1 million, training at 1 million workers a year. So again, let's look at their practice, their commitment, the eagerness for people to engage. How do we understand what their prior knowledge and experience is in cleaning? How do we create an environment where people want to be on a pathway of continuous improvement? How do we emphasize that everyone should be asking the why behind cleaning for health actions, so that no matter how varied your experience is, your background, or even the work environment you're in, we want 1 million workers every year to be trained to ensure they have the skills and the knowledge to make informed decisions to keep themselves, their co-workers, and everyone who uses that built environment safe and healthy. Are we there? No, but wouldn't it be great if that was our mission? Our mission was to go where we are today, our baseline, what we do every year amongst all our different organizations, and say collectively, could we come together as a team, as a coalition, and train 1 million workers a year? And again, the OSHA grant that ISSA was awarded at the end of last year is going to help us do that. Starting in January, from January to September 2023, we're going to focus on conducting at least 30 face-to-face workshops amongst the 20 master trainers. That will help us go to scale. What comes, help us from lessons learned there. What are the next steps? How many more facilities do we need? How many more training areas do we need? How many more trainers do we need? What does the curriculum look like? And I think we'll get there. It'll take a little bit of time. It'll take a little bit of work, but it's going to take a team effort to get to 1 million workers. That should be our mission right now.
About 5 minutes ago in that answer, you had mentioned the word essential. And I know essential personnel is a sticking point with the cleaning industry because, when COVID-19 hit, hospitals and important facilities that had to stay open could only allow essential people to pass curfews and things like that. And the cleaning staff weren't included in that. Do you see that changing?
It will, Lance, because it's based on personal experiences. And I'll tell you about my personal experience. We go back to April 2020 here in Washington, D.C. We had started probably, I think it was the first week of April, a curfew at 8 o'clock. And I was in a hospital training cleaning staff in a hospital on how to clean for this new infectious disease, SARS-CoV-2 virus, COVID-19. And I came out of the hospital around about 8:15. The curfew had started at 8. And I was stopped by 2 policemen. And they said, "What are you doing on the street?" And I said, "I work in the hospital." And I said, "Here's my hospital ID card." And on the back of it, it says, "I'm an essential employee and here's my emergency pass." And I looked over my shoulder and there was 15 cleaning professionals coming out of the hospital, the people I had just trained. And I went, "Oh, bugger, they don't have what I have. They don't have one of these passes." And I said to the police officer, "They're all with me." And he said, "All of them?" I said, "Yeah, they're all with me." And I sat around that night and went, "Oh my gosh, what are we going to do?" Because you can't go into a dirty hospital in the middle of a pandemic. You can't go into a dirty airport. You can't go into a dirty hotel. And we have really started now on both at the federal government level as well as the state level to ensure that cleaning professionals make that essential employee list. I do. as an infectious disease expert, but that's not what we want to do here. We want to ensure that everyone that we advocate for and represent is on that list, so they can continue doing their work on a daily basis when there's a disaster, an emergency, or other sort of critical situation. And I can say right now that's not in place. So let's go back to this, Lance. If we want to train 1 million people, which we will do, keep that as our focus. What else do we have to do? Well, as a sidebar, we have to advocate for people, both at the federal and state government levels, down to the local level, government level as well, to be considered as essential employees. And the only way we can do that is with an appropriate workforce development program, by showing the curriculum, by demonstrating the learning objectives, by demonstrating the skills, the knowledge, and the abilities these people will have and do have, and do it in a way that's formalized. And I think this is the real big opportunity for all of us at the moment, to do a formal workforce development program that we can defend, but we can say we're doing this based on science and evidence, and it's going to protect their health and their safety, as well as that of the environment they clean every day.
Let's talk about the word scale again that you mentioned. This is not just a problem for the US. This is a worldwide issue. I mean, you're talking about airports, means of transportation, cruise ships, hospitals. This is all over. I mean, do you see any kind of headway in the rest of the planet?
Yes, it is. And we're seeing some parallels from other industries, Lance, that we could actually look at as models. So again, if I would like to have a formal program in place where cleaning professionals are acknowledged as professional tradesmen or tradespeople. And, the plumbers, the electricians, the plasterers, are all recognized as being a trade. Cleaning is a trade. I would go back even further than that. Look at in places like Europe, UK, Australia, Southeast Asia, looking at programs for recognizing trades. How do they do it? How do we get the cleaning professionals to be recognized as a trade? How do we get appropriate courses into community colleges or even universities? One of the examples I use quite often, though, Lance, is the stop and go sign, guys, on construction work on roads. Now, internationally, as well as in many states in the country here, you have to go through a formal training program to be able to hold a stop and go sign. And it's a formal workforce development program. And I went, gosh, if the stop and go sign guy or lady or person has to go through and do a formal training, then that's a really good model for us to look at and say, well, how do we take that back to the cleaning industry and go, where is the formal workforce development program here? And that gives me a lot of optimism, a lot of hope that we can achieve this. But it's going to, again, take a team. And we've started that, again, working with Normie, CPI, Shaw, and many other stakeholders within the cleaning industry, starting to build up what does that master trainer look like, there's that cohort of master trainers, and then again, sit down and look at what are the key learning objectives that are needed to get us recognized as being professionals. We should be recognized as a trade. I thoroughly believe that. And with that, we need to have formalized training, maybe even annual compliance training. I don't know whether it's out there at the moment for the cleaning industry, but what does annual compliance training look like if we're going to be using products, chemistry in disinfectants and cleaning products, as well as equipment that can both do good and harm? That's so important that we continue as a team to advocate for that.
Several years ago when COVID first came on the scene, and I know it's been around a lot longer, but when it became an issue in a pandemic, a lot of tragedy came out of this, but a lot of good discussions did too, and a lot of changes to an industry that desperately needed recognition, changing, and understanding. I think there's hope moving forward.
Oh, Lance, it's exciting. In my career, I've done it previously in other infectious diseases programs I've worked in other sectors I've worked in, both in government and non-government. Do I think it's doable? I wouldn't throw a number out there to train 1 million people in a year if I didn't think it was realistic. And I really do think it's a realistic, doable, achievable goal that we all should have as an industry, and sit down as a team to work out what it needs to go to scale. What are the moving parts? What are the elements that need to be put in place to make that happen? But I think all of us collectively as a cleaning industry should say, let's go for it. Let's go and train 1 million people in a year and be able to do it the next year and the year after. And then once we get that number, we might sit back and go, okay, how do we do better than that?
You know, if we can only get you to become a little bit more passionate about this, you know, it might drive it a little faster.
Well,
Just kidding.
it's interesting, Lance. As an epidemiologist, you know, working in infectious diseases, you know, both for government and for the private sector for many years, to think that I've now come over into the cleaning industry, which I didn't know a lot about a few years ago. I've learned a few things. I continue to learn things every day, but I see so much opportunity for this industry, and that's what excites me. I think, first of all, recognition. Everyone's got to be recognized for the hard work they do every day. Recognition for the science that goes into the development of our cleaning products, our disinfectants, the active ingredients, the science behind that, get that recognized. Recognition for the tools that we have available for all of us to clean. Again, cleaning for health and the tools that we use for that. So more importantly, it's about being a good advocate, being a steward at the moment for everyone in the cleaning industry to get that recognition I think they deserve. I don't, you know, I do what I do right now, Lance, because I don't think it's there. And I think that's something that I could be successful at helping at, but not just me on my own. It's going to take a team and working with people like Doug and yourself to get that to happen.
Hey, Gavin, as always, it's a pleasure talking to you. It's extremely informative. It's fun. And I appreciate you spending the time here with us.
No, I really appreciate it, and just appreciate what you and Normie are doing right now for the industry. It's fantastic, Lance. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. And we'll do this again.
Be more than happy to.
All righty. Take care.
Bye now.
Well, hopefully everybody was able to watch that entire presentation. A little rough start, but we got going. I do see that Gavin's in the room, and Gavin, if you wouldn't mind coming in and opening your mic up, you know, we may have a few questions in here for you. I have one for you to get it started. And first of all, thank you again. But the big thing is we just watched your presentation talking about workforce development, about the cleaning industry and how important it is. What's that have to do with indoor air quality and mold assessment and mold remediation, other than the word everything?
Great question, Lance, and it's really important that we move away from, looking at silos, putting ourselves into little boxes, and actually look more comprehensively within that built environment of what are the risk factors. And we saw the federal government in this country, as well as CDC, go, well, it's airborne, so surfaces don't count. Well, hang on. Doug and I are sitting in his RV and we're going, hang on, dirty surfaces lead to dirty air and dirty air leads to dirty surfaces. What does the government not know about? And it's that fact that we don't put all these parts of what we do together and make it a very comprehensive approach. And, you know, this is what I've learned from Doug, especially, you know, when you look for areas for mold, you're looking for reservoirs. And those reservoirs are the risk factors for any infectious disease, any germ or bacteria or virus. So again, it's a way that we want, as we move forward, let's keep that vision in mind. Workforce development is key to the success of this. And the workforce development curriculum will bring in a lot of education, a lot of facts and knowledge, a lot of those pieces that will actually come together and go, I get it now. I get it. I really do get it. When I walk into a place or hop into a car or a plane or a train, that's what I should be looking for. And it's not moving away from the fact, oh, you've got to understand the name of this virus or bacteria in Latin. And it has, no, it's just a germ. Germs make you sick. Keep it really simple.
Thanks, Gavin. And Doug, I see you're in the room. Want to jump in and say hi?
Hey, how you doing? Great to have you, Dr. Gavin. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I was just sitting here laughing to myself because I was thinking about talking about people that are generally doing cleaning, and I think they do a great job. We have a lady that comes to our house and she cleans on a regular basis, but you know where she doesn't clean? The top of the door jambs. She doesn't clean up there. And I think there are so many places like that, as you talk about, that are reservoirs that we forget, hey, there's stuff growing there, or potentially stuff growing there.
And I think you're right. The lady who cleans my house, Maria, her company's fantastic. You know, even before I joined the clean industry, Lance, I'd known Maria now for at least 15 years. It was that day. It was that day last year. She came over and said, Gavin, can we have a cup of coffee on your back step? And I said, yeah, sure, Maria, what's up? And she said, I lost 3. And I went, what are you talking about? 3 people in my company have just died from COVID. And I went, whoa, that's wrong. That's wrong. We know how to protect ourselves. We know how to clean and disinfect. We know how to make the environment safe. That should not happen. She said it happened. And I think the fact that we've gone through those last couple of years, Doug, without clear understanding of what the industry looks like and who is in the industry. And when we go back to state, even local, state and federal government going, who are the victims? We're not there. We're not accounted for. And that really, I would say it upsets me. It worries me that we weren't accounted for.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I'll tell you, one of the things I'm really excited about after spending a couple of weeks with you and helping to put together this curriculum for that half-day class, the 24th of this month, you're going to be in the Normie Pro Academy there at Sunrise, and we're going to invite all of our membership, whoever's close. If they don't even need to travel, just come on over and spend a few hours with us in the afternoon on the 24th. Let's fill up that room so you can show them and share with them a lot of the things that we've been talking about in terms of risk management and the right kind of approach to cleaning. I'm excited about that. It's going to be a great day.
And you've got a fantastic facility down there in Florida, Doug. Yeah. So I really like, I come to, even though a lot of us come down to teach your facility, we always go away with, gosh, I'm glad I went to the Normie facility. I just learned something. I always learn something. So I'm looking forward to coming down on the 24th to Florida. It'll be fantastic.
That's going to be fun. Hopefully we have some good food there too. We'll see.
Oh, that's a possibility.
All right. Well, thank you again. Now, there are a few questions in the room, and truthfully, what I want to do is hold those for a few minutes. I'm going to be closing this out on the external platforms that we're on, and then we'll continue on in our Zoom CE training where we are right now for our members that are actually logged in here. It appears that most of them are the ones with the questions, so we'll be able to address them.
I just want to thank you, Lance, for doing this. I'll tell you, I'm so excited about it. I've got one computer on YouTube. I've got another computer on Normie TV, and I'm looking at Zoom. So I'm very impressed with this. Thanks for doing such a great job.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank everybody that's on the other channels. As Doug mentioned, some of them, we are right now broadcasting live on YouTube, the Twitch network, LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, D-Link or D-Live, and obviously Normie.tv. We're also on, indoorairquality.tv. I'm trying to remember all of them. And everyone that has a normiepro.com website, we have this broadcasting on your personal site right now. So it's out there. I want to thank you all for being on those other platforms. For those of you here in the Zoom room, stay right where you're at. For those of you on the other platforms, give me about a minute and we will restart the 24/7 broadcasting that we normally do on those channels. Everybody, I'll be right back. Admin, if you want to talk amongst yourselves, it's great. Give me a moment and I'll be back.